everybody. Welcome to the Real Bible Study. For those who don't know me, my name is Danielle, and I am your Bible study facilitator. Tonight, we will be in Leviticus 12 and 13 in its entirety. I will read them. I'm allowed, and you will read within whatever version of your Bible you have silently. But before we start, we're going to open with our prayer. So I'm going to speak some parts, and then you're going to repeat after me. Are we ready?
Yes.
Good. Lord, open our eyes
Lord, open our eyes
so we can see something we've never saw before.
so we can see something we never saw before.
Open our ears
Open our ears
so we can hear something we've never heard before.
So we can
so
hear
we
something
can
we
hear
never
something we
heard
never
before.
heard before.
And open our hearts
And
Open our hearts
so we can receive something we've never received before.
So we
so we can receive something we never
received
received before.
Amen.
Amen.
All right, so we're going to start in, I'm going to wait for Alexis to connect, and then we're going to start in Leviticus 12. Is everybody ready? Don't forget to put yourself on mute when you come on. But is everybody ready? Good. All right. The Lord spoke to Moses, tell the Israelites, when a woman becomes pregnant and gives birth to a male child, she will be unclean 7 days. And she is during the days of her menstrual impurity. The flesh of his foreskin must be circumcised on the 8th day. She will continue in purification from her bleeding for 33 days. She must, well, you don't forget to put yourself on mute. She must not touch any holy thing or go into the sanctuary until completing her days of purification. But if she gives birth to a female child, she will be unclean for 2 weeks, as she is during her menstrual impurity. She will continue in purification from her bleeding for 66 days. When her days of purification are complete, whether for a son or daughter, she is to bring to the priest at the entrance to the tent of meeting a year-old male lamb for a burnt offering and a young pigeon or turtle dove for a sin offering. He will present them before the Lord and make atonement on her behalf. She will be clean from her discharge of blood. This is the law for a woman giving birth, whether to a male or female. But if she doesn't have sufficient means for a sheep, she may take 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, one for a burnt offering and the other for a sin offering. Then the priest will make atonement on her behalf and she will be clean. So, ladies, if I had to put a title to this week's message, it's going to be, You Can't Touch This. You can't touch this. Hold on one second. Give me one second. Somebody wants to invite somebody, and I don't want anybody to miss out before we start. So you can't touch this. All right. Who remembers going to the store with your mother and she said, now don't go in the store touching anything, because if you break something, I have to pay for it. You're going to be in trouble. I had those same conversations with my son when he was young. And now that I am a nana, I have the same conversations with her. My son even asked me one day, Ma, do you go over the rules before you and her go in the store? And my response is always, I sure do. Now we getting ready to go into this store. You're not going to be touching nothing. You're going to sit in this cart and we're going to listen. And are we clear? She'd be like, yes, Nana. And we go in the store and we don't have no problems. The statement, you can't touch this, can also be one of the mantras that women live by. Because when you think of this statement, what comes to mind when you think of, you can't touch this? What comes to mind when you hear that statement? You got to pay for the goodies. Okay, I like it. Yeah, I like it. I like it. Okay. So I says a statement that gives off a certain type of confidence and self-empowerment. What I love about the phrase is, even if nobody else don't feel like you are untouchable, as long as you know you can't be touched, that's all that matters. I found a video that I want to share with us about a woman who, even at 59, lets us know she's untouchable and you can't touch this. So hold on. Let me share it.
Now, and topics to a story of a new star in the food world. This morning, our series, The Dish, is focusing on a prolific home cook whose breakout public moment happened at the tender age of 59. Her name, Naseem Ali Hani, who's executive chef and co-owner of Sofre, one of the most acclaimed and authentic Iranian restaurants in America, also one of my personal favorites. Since opening in Brooklyn back in 2018, she's been guest chef at the White House, the first Iranian chef to create a menu at the Met Gala, and a finalist for the James Beard Award for Best Chef. Now, she's also the author of a new cookbook, also called Sofre, which is a testament, I'd say, to the benefits of cooking not only with skills, but with experience.
The aroma is intoxicating. It's incredible.
Long before Naseem Ali Hani
Hi, guys.
became a breakout star of the food world,
This is very hot.
owner of one of New York's most popular restaurants, she was for decades a home cook.
So you just sprinkle a little bit, just a tiny bit.
In this case, dazzling us with a demonstration of 6 types of a crispy Iranian rice dish known as tahdig.
You just go straight to the pan.
Some of it prepared with a pan she'd never tried before, let alone on camera.
You just went for the challenge today. You figured.
Yeah, how interesting it is. And my daughter said, don't do it. And I'm like, I'm going to do it, and we'll see. We'll see.
What an inspiration.
One heart-stopping moment later,
Not bad. No, actually, it's better than I thought.
the point, she says, is to always be learning.
This is great, great tang.
So now if I cook it again, and believe me, I will in a couple of days, because I have to get this right. I will add more oil, I will add cooking time, and I will make it work.
And the food that comes out of her Brooklyn restaurant, along with the recipes that went into her new cookbook, are the result of a lifetime of that kind of experimentation.
What you bring to your food is not your culinary experience, it's your life experience. And if you can bring them together, you have a successful recipe.
The book is a guide to the balance and beauty and amazing variety of the Iranian table. To sit at the sofre, she writes, using the Farsi term for a special type of tablecloth, means setting the table with a spread of delicious, vibrant, soul-satisfying Persian food, just like the kind she grew up with.
Every time I looked right, left, as a young child, grandmother, great-grandmother, aunt, my mother, somebody was cooking, and there was aroma, and it was intoxicating and almost mesmerizing, at least for me.
For a certain kind of American viewer, hearing that all the women were in the kitchen taking care of the cooking, it feels old-fashioned, backwards. You're nodding your head.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you don't see it that way.
No. The way I see it, food is power. And the same way water is power. Who controls the food and water controls the life.
Raised in central Iran, Ali Hani studied law with dreams of being a judge. The Iranian Revolution ended that plan as the country cracked down on women's rights of all kinds.
Our world really turned upside down, literally in a few months.
And then, as war erupted between Iran and Iraq, a bad situation turned worse.
The saddest memory I carried with me for many years was the body bags that they were coming from the front line. Our neighbors, once in a while you would hear a house, a wailing sound. We all knew that another body was brought.
Moving to the U.S. in 1983, food remained an obsession. But any thoughts of opening a restaurant would have to wait, as she saved money to help her 2 younger brothers move to the U.S.
I just thought, my brothers are my priority. It's great to dream about something, but the dreams, they cannot be like a bubble in the air. They should have a foundation. And I saw no foundation in that dream.
That foundation was built a few years later, but just in time for another dream to come true.
We were surprised that I was pregnant with twins. I'm like, everything goes to back burner until further notice.
So it wasn't until 3 decades after moving to America, at the age of 59 years old, when she finally managed to bring all that life experience into a professional kitchen.
I announced to my husband I'm opening a restaurant.
You announced?
I announced I'm opening a restaurant. And he said, may I ask why? He just said, I said, because I have one dream that I have kept all these years. I have to be able to look at this person in the mirror, which is me. I say, what was your reason for not reaching your dream? I don't have an answer for that person 10 years, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I'm gonna do it. And if it fails, I tell that person, you tried, didn't work, tough luck.
That's not at all how it turned out.
Every single dish has been
Phenomenal. The food at Sofre, seasoned with centuries of tradition, was an overnight sensation. And Alihani still seems to treat every table like an old friend.
Well, thank you for being here.
Of course, thank you.
It's not only the food, but the culture she's infused into Sofre. From the meditation that starts each day, to the restrooms she's decorated with posters from films banned after the revolution.
Do you think in spreading Iranian food, you are in some way helping the political situation?
In a political level, I'm just a cook. Who am I? But on a little tiny one guest at a time, I think every guest who dines here has to think of Iran a little bit differently.
Nasim, does any part of you ever wish that all of this success and recognition came earlier?
No, it wasn't my time. I like to accept things as they come and celebrate when they come. And I have had a rich life and a long life. So I have a lot to offer, not just a good chicken sauce or a beautiful rice. I am bringing so much more of my life into this.
Boy, Tony.
Wow,
She's
right?
so matter of fact about everything.
Okay, so what did y'all think about that? What lesson do y'all get from that?
It's never too late.
It's never too late. It's never too late. It is never too late to do anything. Even at 59, she decided that she was going to do what she wanted to do. Okay, hold on. Let me get it off. Okay. Okay, we'll keep it here because I don't know why it won't stop sharing it. Hold on. Stop it sharing. There we go. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So Chef Nasim is the poster child for the mantra, you can't touch this. She knew what she wanted and she wasn't going to stop until she got it. And then when she got it, she made it so great that she wore this mantra, you can't touch this. Even at 59, she said it's never too late to be great. So I want you to write that down, ladies, tonight. That's the first thing I want you to write down for yourself. It's never too late to be great. My first point for this evening, ladies, is it doesn't matter if anyone else confirms for you that you are great. As long as you know you are, you will be untouchable. Oh, you can't see me. Hold on. You will be untouchable. Unfortunately, you can't touch this might also apply to somebody actually touching you. And you got to use your voice and say it loud and proud. So sorry, but you can't touch this. On the other hand, somebody might look at you and see that you are going through something, and a touch might just be what they need to get them through. In our reading for tonight, in Leviticus 12 and 13, we are going to see the reasons why the Israelites could and could not be touched. Let's dive in. In Leviticus 12, 1 through 4, what did the Lord tell Moses to tell the women of Israel they had to do when they gave birth to a son? What did the Lord tell Moses to tell her?
She will be unclean.
days.
Yep. A woman was considered unclean for 7 days during her normal time of menses when she gave birth to a son, and then on the 8th day, he was circumcised. So for an additional 33 days, she was to be left alone, untouched, while she was completing this purification process. And when she was not to touch any holy thing or enter the sanctuary until her purification was complete. When a woman gave birth to a son, she was considered unclean for a total of 40 days, which gave her time to rest and bond with her newborn. From my studies, I found that in the law of ancient Israel, blood had sacred associations. It was understood that the life of a being was in their blood. Let's park here. This is where the idea of maternity leave came from. God knew after carrying a baby for all of that time and going through childbirth, women needed time off from being touched. My first point, ladies, is sometimes we have to go through an untouchable season so that we can take time for rest and rejuvenation, so that when we come back, we will come back with a renewed spirit and we can show others how we bounce back. And while we say proudly, you can't touch this. Romans 12:2 says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what is the good, pleasing, and perfect will of God. In Leviticus 12:5, what did the women have to do when a daughter was born? The verse is Romans 12:2. Romans 12:2. In Leviticus 12:5, what did the women have to do when a daughter was born?
You have to stay unclean for 2 weeks.
2 weeks. If a woman gave birth to a daughter, she was considered unclean for 2 weeks, just as if she was having her menses. And she had to continue in that purification process for 66 days. The mother of a daughter received 80 days for giving birth to a daughter. She got double the time off after giving birth to a daughter. Let's park here. My God already knew I was special, and I already know every other woman is special too. And this is just further confirmed in my spirit how much you love women. Ladies, we are studying these chapters in March, which is Women's History Month. And we got to watch a video of a woman who was doing great things as we opened this Bible study. But more importantly than that, I want you to know that each and every one of you are your own history makers. You are all so awesome that I declare and decree it that you can't be touched. You are blessed and highly favored. Ladies, nobody can do what you do the way you do it. Not just anybody can birth something, nourish it, watch it grow, and then give it to the world to see how it functions. I purposely use the word it and not a person, because everyone on here may not have birthed a child, but you may have birthed purpose or birthed a dream. Birthing anything takes time and energy, and most of all, faith. Luke 1:45 says, blessed is she who has believed that the Lord will fulfill his purpose to her. Luke 1:45 says, blessed is she who has believed that the Lord will fulfill his purpose to her. In Leviticus 12:6-7, while the woman was untouchable, what sacrifice had to be brought after her period of purification was over? What did she have to bring?
A lamb.
A lamb. Yes. When her days of purification was over, regardless if she birthed a son or a daughter, a year-old male lamb had to be given for a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering. And it had to be brought to the tent of meeting. The priest would offer it before the Lord and make atonement for her, and then she shall be clean from her flow of blood. This is the law for both sons or daughters who were born. Bringing the young animals were symbolic for the children that were being brought into the word by the mother. The mother was symbolically being held responsible for bringing another sinner into the world. So she had to bring the lamb offering to mark the dedication to God and the young pigeon or turtle dove to mark atonement. Let's park here. This is why I don't play about my mother. And I don't play about my son. One went through the pain of bringing me into this world, and the other, I had to go through the pain to bring him into this world. I am a representation of her, and he is a representation of me. I pray every day that I'm making her proud because I am her gift from God. And my son is and will forever be my greatest accomplishment. No matter how much I have or will have, he is truly my gift from God. James 1:17 says, every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, with whom there is no change or shifting shadow. That's James 1:17. In Leviticus 12:8, God is always watching out for the less fortunate. What did God do for them? What did he allow the less fortunate to do?
Bring 2 turtles if they couldn't afford
Yeah,
a lamb.
that's correct. If she doesn't have a sheep or couldn't afford one, she could bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, one for the burnt offering and one for the sin offering. From my studies, I learned that Jesus' family offered only a pair of turtle doves at his birth, letting us know that even Jesus did not come from a wealthy family. Let's park here. Ladies, I can't stress the importance of not hanging on how you started. You can't go back and do anything about the environment you were raised in. However, you can change things now. You can be better now. You can discover your purpose now. You can start over now. You can go back to school now if you want. You can change how you are raising your family now. You can be a better mate now. Most importantly, you can be the whole meal now. I strive daily to live up to the Proverbs 31:28. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. If you're not on mute, can you please put yourself on mute so that it don't back up in the mics? Chef Nassim sat in that interview humbled, believing she couldn't be touched because she knew nobody could do what she does like she does it. Because she was giving her customers an experience from something that she conceived, that she nurtured, and that she birthed. But as we continue in our reading, we will see that now there is something that's showing up on people's skin. It is something that we can't touch based on what's going on inside. But it's something totally different, not being able to be touched, and the reason can't be hidden because sores are all over your body. Let's dive in. Before I go on to 13, is it anything y'all want to go over in 12? Or y'all ready to go over in 13? Y'all ready to just start 13? Give me a thumbs up.
Yes.
All right, we ready.
Yes.
All right, so 13 is pretty long, y'all, so bear with me. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron. When a person has a swelling scab or spot on the skin of his body, and it may be a serious disease on the skin of his body, he is to be brought to the priest Aaron or to one of his sons, the priest. The priest will examine the sore on the skin of his body. If the hair in the sore has turned white and the sore appears to be deeper than the skin of his body, it is in fact a serious skin disease. After the priest examines him, he must pronounce him unclean. But if the spot on the skin of his body is white and does not appear to be deeper than the skin, and the hair in it has not turned white, the priest will quarantine the stricken person for 7 days. The priest will then re-examine him on the 7th day. If he sees that the sore remains unchanged and has not spread on the skin, the priest will quarantine him for another 7 days. The priest will examine him again on the 7th day. If the sore has faded and has not spread on the skin, the priest is to pronounce him clean. It is a scab. The person is to wash his clothes and will become clean. But if the scab spreads further on his skin after it has presented himself to the priest for his cleansing, he is to present himself again to the priest. The priest will examine him, and if the scab has spread on the skin, then the priest must pronounce him unclean. He has a serious skin disease. When a case of serious skin disease may have developed on a person, he is to be brought to the priest. The priest will examine him. If there is a white swelling on the skin that has turned the hair white and there is a patch of raw flesh in the swelling, it is a chronic serious disease on the skin of his body, and the priest must pronounce him unclean. He need not quarantine him, for he is unclean. But if the skin disease breaks out all over the skin so that it covers all of the skin of the stricken person from his head to his feet, so far as the priest can see, the priest will look, and if the skin disease has covered his entire body, he is to pronounce the stricken person clean. Since he has turned totally white, he is clean. But whenever raw flesh appears on him, he will be unclean. When the priest examines the raw flesh, he must pronounce him unclean. Raw flesh is unclean. This is a serious skin disease. But if the raw flesh changes and turns white, he is to go to the priest. The priest will examine him, and if the sore has turned white, the priest must pronounce the stricken person clean. He is clean. When a boil appears on the skin of someone's body and it heals, and a white swelling or reddish white spot develops where the boil was, the person is to present himself to the priest. The priest will make an examination, and if the spot seems to be beneath the skin and the hair in it has turned white, the priest must pronounce him unclean. It is a case of serious skin disease that has broken out in the bull. But when the priest examines it, if there is no white hair in it and it is not beneath the skin but is faded, the priest will quarantine him 7 days. If it is spread further on the skin, the priest must pronounce him unclean. It is, in fact, a disease. But if the spot remains where it is and does not spread, it is only the scar from the boil. The priest is to pronounce him clean. When there is a burn on the skin of one's body produced by fire, and the patch made raw by the burn becomes reddish white or white, the priest is to examine it. If the hair in the spot has turned white and the spot appears to be deeper than the skin, it is a serious skin disease that has broken out in the burn. The priest must pronounce him unclean. It is a serious skin disease. But when the priest examines it, if there is no white hair on the spot and it is not beneath the skin but is faded, the priest will quarantine him 7 days. The priest will re-examine him on the 7th day. If it has spread further on the skin, the priest must pronounce him unclean. It is in fact a case of a serious skin disease. But if the spot has remained where it was and has not spread on the skin but is faded, it is the swelling from the burn. The priest is to pronounce him clean, for it is only the scar from the burn. When a man or woman has a condition on the head or chin, the priest is to examine the condition. If it appears to be deeper than the skin and the hair in it is yellow and sparse, the priest must pronounce the person unclean. It is a scaly outbreak, a serious skin disease of the head or chin. When the priest examines the scaly condition, if it does not appear to be deeper than the skin and there is no black hair in it, the priest will quarantine the person with the scaly condition for 7 days. The priest will re-examine the condition on the 7th day. If the scaly outbreak has not spread and there is no yellow hair in it and it does not appear to be deeper than the skin, the person is to shave himself but not shave the scaly area. Then the priest will quarantine the person who has the scaly outbreak for another 7 days. The priest will examine the scaly outbreak on the 7th day, and if it has not spread on the skin and does not appear to be deeper than the skin, the priest is to pronounce the person clean. He is to wash his clothes, and he will be clean. But if the scaly outbreak spreads further on the skin after his cleansing, the priest is to examine the person. If the scaly outbreak has spread on the skin, the priest does not need to look for yellow hair. The person is unclean. But as far as he can see, the scaly outbreak remains unchanged and black hair has grown in it. Then it has healed. He is clean. The priest is to pronounce the person clean. When a man or woman has a white spots on the skin of the body, the priest is to make an examination. If the spots on the skin or the body are dull white, it's only a rash that has broken out on the skin. The person is clean. If a man loses the hair of his head, he is bald, but he is clean. Or if he loses the hair of his hairline, he is bald on his forehead, but he is clean. But if there's a reddish white condition on the bald head or forehead, he has a serious skin disease breaking out in his head or forehead. The priest is to examine him. And if the swelling of the condition on his bald head or forehead is reddish white, like the appearance of a serious skin disease on his body, the man is afflicted with a serious skin disease. He is unclean. The priest must pronounce him unclean. The infection is on his head. The person who has a case of a serious skin disease is to have his clothes torn and his hair hanging loose, and he must cover his mouth and cry out, "Unclean, unclean." He will remain unclean as long as he has the disease. He is unclean. He must live alone in a place outside the camp. If a fabric is contaminated with mildew in wool or linen fabric, in the warp or weft of linen or wool, or in leather or anything made of leather, and if the contamination is green or red in the fabric, the leather, the warp, the weft, or any leather article, it is a mildew contamination, and it is to be shown to the priest. The priest is to examine the contamination and quarantine the contaminated fabric for 7 days. The priest is to re-examine the contamination on the seventh day. If it has spread in the fabric, the warp, the weft, or the leather, regardless of how it is used, the contamination is harmful mildew. It is unclean. He is to burn the fabric, the warp, or weft in wool or linen, or any leather article which is contaminated. Since it is harmful mildew, it must be burned. When the priest examines it, if the contamination has not spread in the fabric, the warp, the weft, or any leather article, the priest is to order whatever is contaminated to be washed and quarantined for another 7 days. After it has been washed, the priest is to re-examine the contamination. If the appearance of the contaminated article has not changed, it is unclean. Even though the contamination has not spread, you must burn the fabric. It is a fungus on the front or back of the fabric. If the priest examines it and the contamination has faded after it has been washed, he is to cut the contaminated section out of the fabric, the leather, or the warp or weft. But if it reappears in the fabric, the warp or weft, or any leather article, it has broken out again. You must burn whatever is contaminated. But if the contamination disappears from the fabric, the warp or weft of any leather article which has been washed, it is to be washed again, and it will be clean. This is the law concerning a mildew contamination in wool or linen fabric, warped or weft, or any leather article, in order to pronounce it clean or unclean. Whew, my God. All right. So in Leviticus 13, 1 through 8, there was a process that had to be performed to determine if a person could be touched or not. The priest had to examine any sores that showed up on the body. If the hair on the sore had turned white and the sore appears to be deeper than the skin of his body, it is a leprous sore. So if you ever heard stories from the Bible of leprosy, this is where this comes from. And the priest would deem him unclean. But if it is the bright spot is white on the skin and the hair didn't turn white and it's not deeper than the skin, the priest would isolate him for 7 days. On the seventh day, if the sore looked the same and it didn't spread, he would go back into isolation for another 7 days. After these 7 days, if the sore faded and it didn't spread, he could wash his clothes and be considered clean. But if it spread all over his body and the priest sees him, he would be considered unclean and the person would be diagnosed with leprosy. Let's do a backstory on leprosy and how severe it was. Leprosy was dealt with seriously because it was such a horrible disease. Leprosy would start off as a small red spot and then it could spread over the entire body. Their hair could fall out. And when it got worse, the fingers and toes start to rot and fall off piece by piece. The gums start to shrink so they would lose their teeth. Leprosy keeps eating away at the face until the nose is literally gone. And the palate and even the eyes rot. And the victim wastes away until death. Let's park here. Can you imagine seeing something like this? I thought when I had the chicken pox, I was doing bad. I remember having those bumps all over me, and they were so itchy. And my grandmother said, give her a cup of hot tea so that all of the pox can come out at once. I remember being quarantined in the house, and my mother was giving me oatmeal baths to help me with the itching. She let both of my sisters be around me so that they could get it too, and she would only have to go through this once. But even with those spots that were all over my body, I never went through a time when somebody didn't touch me. Hugging and other forms of non-sexual touching, I'm sorry, cause your brain to release oxytocin, which release other feel-good hormones like dopamine and serotonin, while at the same time reducing stress hormones such as cortisol and norepinephrine. Now, I'm going to be honest, I'm not a touchy-feeling person. Honestly, I prefer not to be touched. However, from time to time, a good hug can change my day. Some people's love language is touch. Can you imagine if that was your love language and nobody ever touched you? You may begin to feel unloved, unclean, untouchable. Ladies, I'm not sure if you want to be touched or not, but the next time you may be feeling stressed out, take your hands and wrap them around yourself and do a little shimmy and see if that make you feel better. Might not be the hug you want, but it's the hug you need. My favorite aunt told me here recently, if I can't have sirloin, a hamburger will do. In Leviticus 13:9-17, who examines a sore when a person was thought to have leprosy? Who is this up to?
The priest, right?
The priest. Absolutely, the priest. God didn't want this to be left up to guessing or interpretation, so he left it in the priest's hands to determine if the person had a leprous sore or not. If a man or woman was diagnosed with leprosy, they had to live on their own, excluded from their families and their community of Israel. Let's park here. Sometimes when you need confirmation, any old person just won't do. You have to go to somebody you can trust, a professional. You can also take it to God, but be careful who you are trusting your open wounds to, because everybody is not giving out correct diagnosis. Everybody don't want to see you healed. Everybody don't want to see you restored back to the community. Everybody don't want to see you win. Some want to keep you isolated, making you feel like something is wrong with you. Got you thinking that you are a loser, that you will forever be a result of your upbringing, that your life will never be more than what it is right now. But I'm here to tell you today, ladies, the devil is a liar. You are out of isolation. There's nothing wrong with you. You are healed in the name of Jesus. You will win. And if you have not accepted that you are the whole meal, you will realize that you are the whole meal today, and you are not going to let anybody else treat you like a snack. 1 Corinthians 6:13 says, be on your guard, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, be strong. That's 1 Corinthians 6:13. Be on your guard, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, be strong. In Leviticus 13:18 to 23, if a boil develops on the skin, a priest had to examine it to see if an Israelite was untouchable. If the boil was healed, but in its place a white swelling or bright spot, the priest had to examine it. If it was deeper than the skin and if its hair turned white, they would be considered unclean. If after 7 days the priest re-examined him and it spread, they would also be unclean. But if the spot stays in one place and it doesn't spread, the priest would pronounce him clean. The different things these priests had to look at that deemed someone clean or unclean amazes me. Because it wasn't just about a sore. Because the sore could start as one thing, but then that sore could also turn into something else. Let's park here. My God, so if I'm going to be untouchable, I'm going to have to start as one thing. and then transform into something else. Change is necessary, ladies, if we're going to be untouchable. Just like Chef Nassim, she had to change her thought process because she wanted to be a judge to be in something different. She decided to use her love for food as the foundation for her change. She wanted to open a restaurant and she didn't care if she was successful. She wanted to try so she could at least say she did it. Tonight, I want you to write down something that you started on one side of the paper, but you never finished it. And then on the other side, I want you to think of what you could have to do to finish it. For example, it could be I started school. So I started school, but I didn't finish. So now what are the steps it's going to take me to finish it? I outlined the book, but I never wrote it. Go back through your outline and see if you can expand on what you did. I wrote a business plan, but I never started it. See if you can expand on that. Or I wanted to get my finances in order. So let's start with a budget. From this, we are all going to work the steps so that we can finish what we started. Just like my good friend Drake says, and Aisha says all the time, we started from the bottom, and now we're here. In Leviticus 13:24 through 28, a priest has to examine the skin of the Israelites if it is burnt to see if they are untouchable. If the body gets burnt, the priest had to examine it to see if leprosy broke out on it. Let's park here. I thank God for modern medicine because I know there have been times when I didn't burnt the skin off my fingers cooking or my hand trying to get something out the stove. And I got a sore that sometimes I could see the white of my skin. And I put some ointment on it, let the air hit it, and don't touch it like my elders would say. And I watched that thing scab up and heal. Sometimes I would put some cocoa butter on it. And if I look hard enough, ladies, I can see the exact place where the sore or the burn was. But sometimes it's so faint that I can't find it. Either way, I know that the remnant of the sore is there because of something I've been through, something that happened to me. See, ladies, sometimes God has to leave a friendly reminder of what you've been through, hoping that you won't do it again. That next time I won't be cooking in short sleeves, or I will be a little bit more careful when I got the pan out of the oven. Maybe for you, your scar could be so that you don't go down to their house again, not to dial that number again, or let that person in your space again. Psalms 37:4-6 says, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in him, and he will act. He will bring forth your righteousness as the light and your justice as the noonday. That's Psalms 37:4-6. In Leviticus 13:29-44, if a man or woman found a sore on their head or in their beard, they had to go to the priest to be examined. If the sore is deeper than the skin and it has a yellow piece of hair, they would be considered unclean. But if the priest examines them and it does not appear deeper than the skin and no black hair is in it, they had to isolate for 7 days. On the seventh day, if the sore has not spread and no yellow hairs in it, and it is not deeper than the skin, he shall shave himself, but not the scale or the scab, and isolate themselves for another 7 days. After those 7 days, if there is no change, the priest can consider him clean. But if the sore has spread, the priest doesn't even need to look for the yellow hair. He's considered unclean. But if there's no change and black hair is present, the sore has healed. He is clean. If the man whose hair has fallen from his head, he's considered bald, but he is clean. However, if on the bald head or the bald forehead, a reddish white sore is present, it is a leprosy breakout. And when the priest examines him, and if the sores are also on the rest of the body, he is considered unclean or untouchable. That's park here. Today, we are still dealing with the stigma of hair loss and what that represents. We are labeled untouchable or unclean, made to feel like we are not good enough if our hair is not a certain way or if we don't have hair at all. Today's leprosy in the hair could be called alopecia, which is hair loss from the scalp or elsewhere on the body. Also, we may be experiencing hair loss based on a medical treatment or medical diagnosis that we're undergoing, and our hair has fallen out because of it. I said this to say, ladies, let's be kind. Let's be kind to one another when we see this going on with one of our sisters. If you know any type of treatments that worked for you in the past, pass it along. Let's start helping to fix each other's crowns instead of helping to knock them off of each other's heads. Philippians 2:4 says, instead of each person watching out for their own good, watch out for what's better for others. Philippians 2:4 says, instead of each person watching out for their own good, watch out for what's better for others. In Leviticus 13:45 through 59, a leprous person had to tear his clothes and have a bare head. He had to cover his mustache and cry out, I'm clean, I'm clean. And he had to be alone all the days he was considered unclean, outside of the camp, outside of his community. And if his clothes were deemed to be that of a leprous person, a priest had to examine the clothes. And if the clothes were deemed untouchable, there was a 7-day isolation period. And if the leprosy didn't spread, the clothes had to be burned in a fire because the leprosy was deemed active on the clothes. But if they could be washed, then the washing needed to be done 2 times, and the clothes could be considered clean. Let's park here. Can you imagine having to scream out, I'm clean, I'm clean? And you had to wear what you were going through, and everyone knew your business. Can you imagine carrying something around with you that can't be washed away? See, I know what it feels like to carry around pain, sin, and suffering. And no matter how many different types of soap I bought, how expensive they were, the scent of my decisions could not be washed away. See, I ain't always know I was a whole meal, ladies. Yep, I used to be a snack too. So it wasn't hard for people to treat me like that because that's what I said I was, and that's all I thought I deserved. It took a lot of self-reflection, soul searching, and crying, and talking with God to get to this mindset. I was really finally sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was tired of crying about stuff that I could change. See, I was still choosing to be in an unclean state. I was choosing to not pay attention to my isolation period because who wants to be alone? I was choosing to let people have access to touching me when they themselves were unclean. I was choosing to let the burn from my own choices hit me down so deep into my skin that it left visible scars. I was choosing to allow people to see my hair and judge me based on it. And I was choosing for my clothes to hold the stench of the sin I was in. I know I'm guilty of a lot, but I thank God that He cleaned me up and told me it was okay to start again. I had to build a strong relationship with God, and I gave my burdens over to Him. I had to have faith that He will make it all right. I had to trust that this too shall pass. I had to trust that He will make a way out of no way. I had to trust that He would make my crooked path straight. I had to trust that He would clean me up. I had to trust that He would make sure I wouldn't be judged based on what I looked like. I had to trust His process of me turning from a snack into a whole meal. I had to trust that the people He removed from me was no longer necessary for the next phase of my life. I had to trust that His way was way better than mine. And most importantly, I had to trust that when He allows me to say, I am all that in a bag of chips, that my mantra can be, you can't touch this. And it's true. Before we tie this together, is there anything that we want to discuss in 13? I know we running late, so let me just tie it together real quick. Hold on. Let me get it straight. So we're gonna share. We're gonna take out the sound, share the sound again. We're gonna click this, and then we're gonna play this.
Do it for me. Oh Lord, do it for me. Oh. just won't be done. So Lord, do it for me. Sometimes I get desperate and I say it like this. I say, Lord, fix it for me. Anybody know that only God can do it? Oh, fix it for me. Oh, thank you, Jesus. Because, Lord, I have a problem that only you can solve. So, Lord, do it for me. Can y'all play that for me? Lord, do it for me. Lord, I need you to do it right now. I can't wait till tomorrow. Do it for me. Lord, if you don't do it, it just won't be done. So Lord, do it for me. Listen, Lord, fix it for me. Anybody know God can do it? Oh, Jesus, fix it for me. Lord, I have a problem that only you can solve. Lord, I need you to do it for me. Everybody say it right now. Say, Lord, do it for me. If you need God to do something, say, Lord, do it for me. Do it. Yeah, Lord, Lord, if you don't do it, oh, it just won't be done. Somebody say, Lord, yeah, do it for me. One more time and I'm leaving it alone. Somebody
What did we learn? What did we learn?
What I learned that it's a process that we have to go through. When God has a plan, it's going to be a transformation. And in that transformation, we may not understand every step unless we listen to him intently. And he'll lead us to what he wants us to do. But it's definitely a transformation, and it's a slow one, and it's one that we have to take intently.
Yes.
And it's for us. It's not meant for nobody else.
Yes, and you have to go from an unclean stage to a clean stage. You can't you can't start out with being clean. So you got to go through those phases so you can get to where you need to be. What else? What else did we learn? Well, I really learned about leprosy in this chapter. I always heard the stories about it, and I just never knew what how it came about and what the significance of it was. So for me, learning the backstory of it and why, it was such a bad disease, I was like, oh my goodness, all these things that was happening and why, they would send the people out, put them in quarantine. I get it. Like, can you imagine all that stuff being done to people? You just waste away to nothing, and you just got all these sores all over your body. So whatever you going through, you can't even say, no, I don't have leprosy. Oh yeah, you do. So you can't even lie and say you don't have something, because it's written all, like they say, it's written all over your face. I mean, it's all over your whole body what you going through. What else? Any last thoughts? Anything? We have a couple people on here that's new. I see. Welcome. If this is your first time with us this evening, welcome. Please give me put your email in the chat so that we can add you to our email list, and then every week you'll get the emails reminding you of the Bible study. And I'll recap from the week before. So if this is your first week on here with us, welcome. We love to have you. We hope you come back, and always tell a friend. Bring a friend. And the link that you get is the same link you can send out. It's nothing special. You don't have to be invited. You don't have to be accepted in. All are welcome. We take everybody. Thank you so much. Brenda, get that for me. And any last thoughts or anything before we close?
I'm just mad that I missed the whole thing, Danielle.
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you. No problem. I'll send it to you.
My daughter had her championship game.
It's okay. No problem. I'll send it to you. No
All right,
problem.
thank you.
Not a problem. Anybody, any other last thoughts, concerns, issues, feelings? Okay. Well, all right, y'all. I see you next week. And I can't wait to keep it real with you. Have a good evening, everybody.
Good night.
Have a good
Bye,
night.
y'all.
Good night.